Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Koo. I'm currently a lecturer at Akita University. And today I'm talking about perceptions of multimodal remediation compositions in L2 academic writing. Okay. So part of this presentation is going to overlap with a JALT presentation I did last year about multimodal compositions. So that one was more of a workshop. It was more practice oriented. So if you're interested in that, that's going to be on the JALT YouTube channel, and you can go back to that to look at that. If it's more about how to apply multimodal compositions in the classroom. Okay. Now, just to give a little bit of context, the kind of classroom that I'm working with in this study is for academic writing for university EFL students. And it's really focused on essay writing, teach grammar, vocabulary, collocations, different conventions of academic writing, like writing thesis statements, plagiarism, and doing common, having them write different drafts, doing peered feedback, revisions. So I would consider this a pretty traditional academic writing classroom for an EFL academic writing class. And at the time, I was wondering if there was a way to incorporate multimodal compositions, which was a topic I was interested in an academic writing class. There was always, for me, there was a fear that there wasn't enough time for it. We were trying to get them to do a certain number of essays and going through a certain part, part of a book, the textbook. So there was a fear, like if we do extra multimodal compositions, would that take up too much time? There's also concern that maybe multimodal compositions aren't academic enough, and then therefore maybe students might not take them seriously or really buy into it. They might wonder, why are we doing this? And so this is what sort of led me to an interest in their perceptions, on doing multimodal compositions in an academic writing classroom. So what I tried to do was to figure out a way of integrating multimodal compositions so that it would work with and collaborate with academic writing. So the two goals that I wanted to meet were to make the connection between multimodal compositions and academic writing explicit, so that doing multimodal composition would enhance academic writing. Or in the second point, using multimodal compositions to reinforce concepts that I would have already been teaching in academic writing courses. Okay. So what I came up with was to do something like this. So over this course of a semester. So I had students do 4 writing assignments. The first was to write an argumentative essay about an environmental issue. And then I asked them to convert that text-only essay into an infographic. And the infographic would be the multimodal composition. Then in assignment 3, I asked them to write a new genre, which was compare and contrast two perspectives on a social issue. And then, but this time they were going to create an infographic from scratch based on that topic, and then convert it back to a text-only essay. So not only are we dealing with different types of compositions, text-only and multimodal, but we're also dealing with a conversion. So this is what studies have called multimodal remediation-based composition. So multimodal because it combines more than one mode. Remediation because that's what the conversion aspect is about, is remediating it, converting it into a new media, a new format. And then composition because we are asking them to compose texts. Okay, so here's an example of the environmental one, the argumentative environmental essay. So first they wrote a text-based essay, and then they converted that into an infographic. And then so this is essay 1 and essay 2, assignment 1 and assignment 2. And then assignment 3, they were asked to write about two perspectives, compare and contrast two perspectives on a social issue. And they converted that infographic into a text-based essay. Okay. So there are several reasons why I chose to use infographics as the multimodal composition. Infographics, one reason is because the format and the organization of an infographic often can be very similar to an academic essay, with having an intro, a body, and a conclusion. Another reason is because infographics, by using infographics, we can also teach the typical concepts of composing that we want. For example, making a specific argument, using specific examples, evidence, considering audience, considering tone, voice, coherence, providing references, and problems with plagiarism. So we can cover all of these while doing an infographic, which would also apply to academic writing. Also, we can go through the same processes that we would typically use in academic writing with an infographic. So brainstorming, pre-writing, planning, outlining, research, multiple drafts, peer or teacher feedback, and even in-class workshops. So the reason why infographics were used, and I would argue, quite effectively, is to reinforce concepts and processes that are commonly taught in academic writing, to demonstrate how those concepts would be applied to texts beyond the classroom, and also having them develop an awareness of how their choices in composing function to achieve their communicative goals. All right, but for multimodal remediation-based composition, it's not only confined to infographics. So for example, Hafner has used video documentaries, asking students to convert video documentaries into a written scientific report. So that's a very interesting example as well. So you can convert between different types of texts based on what you think is suitable. So I was interested in having the students do it, but also seeing what the students' perceptions of doing this are. So in my study, I did this with 40 undergraduate students. They're divided into 2 writing classes, and they were all English instruction majors. And this was done at a university in Taiwan. And I used this format for the study. So basically asking them to do each assignment, and then after that, collecting self-reflection statements. The self-reflection statements were based on Shipka. They have it's meant to be sort of a self-reflective assignment for students to do after assignments, to get them to think about what choices they made. So I asked students to do this self-reflective statement. What your goal for the composition was, what did they want to accomplish? What are some of the writing choices they made? How did they feel if they're writing this composition? And what is their opinion of doing this type of writing assignment? So for data analysis, I analyzed the self-reflective statements. So there were 4 sets for each student, and I was coding for themes, doing thematic analysis. And the main questions that I was trying to answer were, what were the students' goals for each of the compositions, and how did students conceptualize the composition assignments? And that the second question was really, I think, my main question, I was wondering, are they going to see that link between academic writing and infographics? Are they going to conceptualize these two as academic enough? Or are they going to see infographics as just being this like weird, kind of, not traditional, abnormal assignment that the teacher decided to, or like something, maybe just something that's for fun and not really academic? All right, so I'm going to divide my findings into these three themes, and I'll go over each one individually. So the first one is about shared conceptualizations, and basically these are codes that I found in the student reflections that were universal across and shared across all four compositions. So if you look at the codes here, these were the most common ones, which was to provide information, address an audience, and to be clear. So if we look at some of the examples, I want to tell people the shocking fact that people may not even know. As a writer, I think that if readers get the point and understand what I wrote, then it's an accomplishment. I want to make my infographic clear and easy to read and understand. So these were the most common codes that I found, themes, I guess you could say. And they occurred in all four compositions. And some other ones that were consistent across all four compositions, but maybe less prevalent in the number of times they showed up, were being persuasive, trying to fulfill assignment requirements, conveying thoughts and ideas, and providing data statistics. And for me, the main takeaway was that the students were in their self-reflections, the students were describing composing processes. They had these shared descriptions of the composing processes that were for both text-only and multimodal compositions. And to me, what that means is that they were able to see that even though one assignment was based only on writing an academic text and the other one was based on making an infographic, there were still composing processes that were the same, or that were applied for both types of assignments. And to me, that's significant. It means that they were able to see the underlying composing processes that could be used, whether it's a text-only essay or an infographic. So that was the first theme. The second theme was the visual-textual link. So here I'm comparing the text-based essays, which is essay 1 and essay 4, or sorry, assignment 1, assignment 4, and then the infographics, which were assignment 2 and 3. And there were some codes that were specific to the text-only essays and some that were specific to the infographics. So here are some of them. Organization, style, developing writing skills, those were only used for the text-only essays in the students' self-reflections. And using text and images, choosing fonts and colors, also beauty, those were only used for the infographics. And when we first look at this, it might not be that surprising. It's sort of almost expected, I think. But to me, the takeaway from this, well, what we can see is that for the text-only essays, I think they were, in their self-reflections, they were writing more about the general composition elements like organization and style. Those are pretty general. General composition concepts that we would teach in a classroom. But for infographic, they were focusing more on textual and visual elements that those were kind of rising to the top. Those were the parts of that. When they were describing their assignments in the self-reflections, those were the things they were mentioning. And so for me, the takeaway was that doing the multimodal, the infographics, the multimodal compositions, I think students did have this awareness, or it sort of raised awareness of those visual textual elements that may not have, they may not have explicitly thought about if they only did the text-only essays. And also, it's interesting that the students weren't just talking about the visual stuff, right? Like, for example, they were also talking about text, using simple text and using certain fonts, which means that doing the multimodal composition is also bringing awareness to the textual elements and not just the pictures or the images or the colors. Okay, so I think there's this connection between the visual and textual that is this bridge that's created by doing those infographics. All right, now for theme 3, I'm calling this content generation and mode conversion. And bear with me here, this one might be a little bit complicated to explain. But this is here just an overview of what I had the students do. And what I noticed was that there was a similar code between SA1 and SA3, and I thought that was kind of surprising, because to me, at first glance, those seem like very different assignments. You know, the first assignment 1 is writing a text-based essay, and assignment 3 is writing an infographic, and they're on completely different topics. So I was very surprised to see that there was this one code that that was consistently used for both assignment 1 and assignment 3. So that code, so students were describing the way that students were describing assignment 1 and assignment 3 in their self-reflections. They often talked about closeness to their lives. So here are some examples. I mentioned the impact on both the environment and people's lives so that people can relate to the topic. And my goal is to talk about something that I care about. So they described assignment 1 and assignment 3 in a way that like they wanted to be writing or composing something that people could relate to or that they could personally relate to. And I wondered, why was this something that they had in common, even though these were very different types of compositions? So for me, the way I explain this is that the one thing that assignment 1 and assignment 3 have in common is that both of them are what I would call content generation tasks, meaning they are supposed to write something from scratch. They're supposed to create content from scratch. Whereas assignment 2 and 4 are mode conversion tasks, which means that they're trying to convert what they wrote previously into a different mode or into a different format. And I think that's what students were sort of getting at, that in essay, because assignment 1 and assignment 3 required them to generate new content, they were thinking about content that was close to their lives. But they weren't so much thinking about that when they were doing assignment 2 or 4, because they were thinking about mode conversion. So for me, this was very interesting, because I expected, we previously talked about codes being similar in the text-based essays and codes being similar in the infographics. To me, that was maybe not too surprising because those are similar types of compositions, right? So same codes across the same kind of content. But then there was also a same code based on this task type, which was content generation. And I think it shows that students were aware that, 1 and 4, assignment 1 and 4 are similar because they're both text-only essays, and assignment 2 and 3 are similar because they are infographics, but also assignment 1 and 3 are similar because they are content generation. I think it shows a deeper level of thinking that like we understand that even though you're asking me for one of them, you're asking me to write a text-based essay, and for another, you're asking me to make an infographic. But we understand that these are also similar tasks because we're creating content from scratch. Okay. So based on these 3 themes, the findings that I found, I think my overall takeaway from doing this with the students is that by doing multimodal remediation-based compositions, they were able to show an awareness of general concepts of composing that apply to all the compositions, which is, I think, for me, that was great to be able to see that, you know, they were able to apply general concepts of composing to all of the compositions, but also that they were able to point out specific concepts of composing that depended on the genre and also depended on the task type. And I think being able to show an awareness of these different levels of sort of conceptualizations of composing, I think it shows that this type of assignment, it to me, it was academic enough. I think, you know, this is certainly one of the goals that we would have in academic writing. This reminds, and I think this quote sums up sort of what the possible benefit of doing, you know, multimodal composition is, or, you know, kind of working on multimodal literacy. To develop students into discerning readers and savvy producers of multimodal texts by drawing attention to the various strategies utilized in the production of these texts and the ways in which specific choices work together to achieve the desired communicative goals. Okay, so here are my references, and thank you for watching or listening. And I'd love to answer questions when our session comes. Thank you.